I was unemployed and I was on my way to what was then called the Labour Exchange to try and get some money. And over somebody's shoulder on the bus, I saw this advertisement. 20th Century Fox wants riggers, model makers, da, da, da. I met Les Bowie, who was absolutely marvellous. He invented special effects in Britain. And he could never get the money. He was always underfinanced. He was a fabulous matte painter, really brilliant. And he had a great tradition of picking up square pegs, lame ducks, and getting jobs for people. And he said, look, come and meet Gerry Anderson. So I went over there. I was quite impressed. I was quite intrigued because I hadn't really seen any of the puppets. And then when I saw the storyboards for Thunderbirds, I thought, well, this is a good one. I'd like to work on this. I really would. And they offered me 6 weeks' work. Turned up to work, and as we say, 4 years, 11 months later, I left. I was not very impressed with the studio. If you've worked on the multi-million-pound film, Cleopatra, sets everywhere, names that you go goggle-eyed when you see them walking down the corridors, puppets weren't quite so exciting. Well, at the very beginning, it was just one industrial unit that had this, outside was a huge rusting water tank that was so big it had to be made in 2 pieces and clamped together and filled with a fire hose overnight with its artificial horizon with a trough behind it. So when the camera was low, you get a beautiful horizon. And a couple of puppet stages, and very quickly we got a unit across this derelict waste ground beside the power station, which was shared by a builder, and that's where we started doing Thunderbirds. In the surrounding factories, people used to wander in. This is Thunderbirds then? And they'd come in with a trolley load with 100 weight of Mars bars that had been slightly damaged on the production line, or do you want a few quires of Christmas wrapping paper? Because, and everybody after transmission knew what was going on, and all the people in the estate loved it. Things like Thunderbird 2 was flying on 4 wires, 4 tungsten wires, the same thing which the electric current of the puppets used to go down. And there was a thing made a bit of 2x2, like a cross of Lorraine. Peter Ragg doing these difficult flying shots. And Peter could fly this thing, got to do the movement, and he could make Thunderbird 2 land perfectly, except when the wires broke and it would fall to the concrete floor, smashed to pieces. It would take the bits into the model shop. Can you fix it? It's not as bad as it looks, used to be the cliche. The ramp would go up with Thunderbird 2, which had trundled out of the cave. The palm trees had gone back, each one wired to broomsticks under its hold. There was a power station behind the studio, and the coal was delivered on a private railway. This is relevant. And the carriages of coal used to be tilted with that particular noise, and the coal dumped. And it was that noise that some clever sound person recorded as the ramp going up for Thunderbird 2. If it was a takeoff shot, then it would have Shamuli rockets, and the wires would be slack from above, and Thunderbird 2 would take off. Or the wires were of different length, which made sure that pressure was unequal, and they would break and fall down onto the bloody set. Rewire Thunderbird 2, redo the wires with powder colour. We had a letter from the National Physics Laboratory. They said Thunderbird 2 is aeronautically impossible. It can't fly. So one of the lads wrote back saying, so is the bumblebee, but flies very well. And we had that level of correspondence from fans. A simple shot. Putting the astronauts into the bottom of, was it Thunderbird 3, which was known in the studio as the E-type carrot. Putting 2 little figures on their seats up into the base. I think it took 49 takes, just 2 sticks going up. At the beginning, it was great fun because any shot you did, you could mark it library. Outtakes, everything. Library shot, library shot. How did you get on today? Oh, I shot 17 shots. Oh, splendid. Blowing up the installation as the opening shot. But it didn't relate to any episode. It was just a huge sort of oil installation, industrial installation, so big, covering an 8x4 sheet of blockboard. And it was blown up in sequence from the back, boom, 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 boom. And Derek did this with great enjoyment, and we had a fabulous shot. And that was the first one. Watching all the Airfix kits melt and the bits that we purchased from Woolworths, the model. Everybody knows, I hope, what a piece of film looks like. It's got sprocket holes each side and a meter on the camera, I hope, which you can increase the speed. The more you increase the speed of the film, when it's projected at 24 frames, it slows the action down.
Okay, turn over. Action!
Eventually, if you really wanted to waste film, you'd do it at 120 frames, when everything was so immensely slow, all the lumps of concrete, whatever, flying in the air. Flying shots tend to bump. Aircraft, bombs, rockets and so on. The higher speed you film it, so you slow down the action so it moves very, very nicely and prettily. It's the idea of high-speed photography. But the film whizzes through the camera, which would make the producer scream. How many magazines just for that shot on the screen? Fireflash was one of Derek Meddings' ideas. The idea of the end of the wings turning down and opening up and then wheels coming out. Derek was immensely clever. He really was. I'm not sure he'd had any formal training. He was another one of those people like Ken Adam, who turned up to do a little job and ended up doing James Bond sets. The secret of all our models was they were dirted down, like aeroplanes are, with streaks of grease and exhaust burns and cracked glasses on spotlights and so on. Our models always worked for that reason. And you'll see things like Destination Moon, just incredible, awful American film that had this big shiny thing. And the secret of any model on the road, this is a couple of overall theories, you get the foreground as low as possible, like the glorious opening shot in Star Wars. I believe they had to sling the magazine under the camera to get the model so close on the camera, which we did with Fireflash. But you can undersling the magazine. So instead of the magazine on top of the camera, like Mickey Mouse's ears, it's underneath. So if you want to put a model, you can get it very, very close to the top of the camera. So when it comes over the lens hood, it's absolutely vast, and you pull focus as it goes away. On this occasion, it just flew away into the distance and did what all our models did. Hit the background, the wires break, and it drops on the floor and smashes yet again. Oh, I loved the crab logger. It was terrific. They used them in Sweden, very, very similar. Take the tree, cut, standard length, whiz all the twigs off. Absolutely marvellous. And out the end comes a roadway. In Sweden, it's hardboard, all manufactured in one great piece of equipment. I've often wondered which came first. The Sidewinder was great fun. Any machine walking on legs, well, we always felt was silly. You've got wheels, you've got caterpillars, you've got whatever, but plodding along, made of little tin cups, it was very, very silly. No wonder it fell down the pit of disaster, or whatever it was. The other one we were cross about, Professor Braithwaite at Imperial College had invented a monorail that had no moving parts. It's called Indian linear induction motor. And you press the button and it raised off the rail, turned on the fan, and away it went. 12 minutes to Heathrow from the centre of London. But Derek designed a monorail that hung on rough-lit curtain track but hung down underneath. And it was not convincing. But this is the rows we used to have.
Share man's first flight to the planet Mars.
The rock snakes, they reared up and they had an eye that's illuminated. This was all second-hand science fiction. It really was. So all over the set, we had steel tubes with a cap on the bottom, a fuse, and the balls of fire out of Roman candles. And these were all pointing down. So as the craft went across the surface of Mars, cloud of dust puffing away, so the rock snakes started attacking and shooting these fireballs. Very few of the balls were in frame, but they bounced all over the stage, setting light to anything flammable, and somebody leapt on the explosives cupboard, the door of which was open, and managed to get this magnesium ball out before it ignited all the explosives. Derek had brilliant ideas, and he was incredibly energetic and could get things done. We couldn't keep up with him because he found it very difficult to articulate what he was trying to do. There was a nightclub in the sky, which was somebody's dream sequence, and he wanted a craft going past it.
Take a ride to the moon. Come with us to the Swinging Star, nightclub of the stars.
And I shot it, and he had a tantrum because that wasn't the shot he wanted, but it was the shot he described. But Derek was good. He went off and got an Oscar for Superman. The Mysterons. We found it very, very difficult to do beams of light. You put a mask in front of the camera and somebody with a sieve shaking full as earth through a beam of light beside the camera. So you've got this effect, which was dust falling. And that's the best we could do. The SPV had the operator, the driver, sitting back to front. So he was looking at a TV screen of the road behind him. We fell out over that. Well, it's unnecessary, isn't it? Could you drive in reverse mile after mile looking at just the mirror? We had Russian film people came, so we shot Angel fighter aircraft flying over at explosions with no film in the camera, because we couldn't afford to waste it. So the Russians, one by one, we had camera pits, so you could get very low, and one by one they looked through and saw these and applauded. They thought it was absolutely glorious. We were flying Angels across a set once, on low set, high camera, big landscape, and they whizzed past, beautiful shot. And we had 3 people catching them. And one lad missed. An Angel aircraft had got long points. It went right into his forearm, about 3-4 inches of it. Fortunately, somebody pulled it out quickly. And to continue my pretension of being a hard effects man, I had to say, is the model all right? And that was the sort of atmosphere that was created. And I still feel awful about saying such a thing. We had a huge sky backing, and we had a new electrician. This great lump of gel went right across the backing, still burning happily, black smoke everywhere. But this electrician, at 120 frames, comes slowly like that $64 million man with an extinguisher, and very nearly buggered the shot by rushing in before we were ready. I regret, once I was directing, I managed to get a reputation for Anglo-Saxon profanity, and that's probably what he heard about the burning gel up the screen. And we put the fire out, of course, open the doors, go out, have a cigarette, and it's all sweetness and light again. We had a meeting once. We were told not to be rude about the puppeteers. Special effects, dirty, grubby, foul-mouthed, lots of noise, quite enjoyable. And the puppets, a little bit fastidious, generally there wasn't much contact. Puppet studio was over there. We were across the muddy courtyard near the coal yards, putting us into perspective.
This is Eurosec launch control. Ignition sequence commences.
So between 2 of the factory buildings, a great scaffolding tower was erected with this colossal boy's own paper rocket, taller than me, with bits and wings and flanges and you name it. And it was to go gently up with great handfuls of Shamuli fire rockets.
This is a sight our screens have made familiar.
Lift off.
But now, in this split second of time, you can share an adventure unlikely to be repeated in our lifetime.
And it was magnificent. The rocket went up, 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 up. And about 30 feet as they panned up with it, the piano wire broke. And this great rocket fell down on its arse and virtually shattered. And everybody, I'm afraid, we were all very childish and tired. We all ran back to our stage in the dirt and filth having hysterics. Stanley Kubrick, he was doing 2001 and he wanted us to shoot the special effects because we could do, on a good day, 5 shots a day. And he couldn't get this because it was taking 3 months to get 5 shots at Shepperton. I believe the Andersons turned it down, but it would have been great fun to subcontract parts of 2001.
These are Joe 90's special glasses. Without them, he's a boy. Wearing them, he's an expert.
Everything in Joe 90 was fun to shoot. The shots were difficult, but it's enjoyable, like this great tank thing. We had this glorious model and wanted to do a really, truly impressive shot. Somebody lying behind the set. So theoretically, the bum should have been visible, but it wasn't. And a lake sprinkled with powder colour to look like a swamp. Somebody pushed it with a broom. Person beside the camera pulls it out. So you've got this fabulous shot. And everybody's on cut, everybody stands around slightly nonplussed. You've got it in one, it doesn't happen. And we stand there, do we do a second one? Because it's just right and it doesn't happen. So we printed it and went on to the next thing. Rushes the next morning, our sour producers sitting there, and there's swamp, water, jungle, and this, what's happening? Why are you wasting film? And this great vehicle comes out through the jungle, crashes into the water, tidal wave at 96 frames, you know. And they said, well, I suppose that was all right. And that was towards the end of, wasn't it nice to work here? We used a chemical called titanic chloride to make smoke effects. So when the buildings collapse, the Empire State Building, you splatter titanic chloride liberally and you get all this lovely smoke effect. But if you breathe it in, your breathing stops. It's like taking a handful of razor blades. And the health and safety people came around once and stepped back in a disbelief. You're still using? We sent memoranda around years ago that this chemical is banned. And he pointed out that any ferrous metal immediately gets a coating of rust from titanic chloride. Also, if you use smoke cartridges, which we did, and the chloride, it manufactured phosgene, which was a First World War poison gas, which we were making on set and breathing. Gives you cancer of the liver. But none of these documents ever got to the workforce because it made a good effect, so it was sod that, tear it up, throw it in the bin. Deterioration of worker management relationships. Gerry Anderson, when I first met him, I was very taken. He was another person who was very passionate about the film industry and making films. And sadly, after a few TV series, and he took an office suite at Pinewood, there was a separation. And we found ourselves very much the poor relatives over on the Slough trading estate. He rarely visited us, and on the few occasions it was to have a moan and gee up, and like a commissar in Russia, it's time to give the workers a Stakhanovite lecture. But he got so many things done. Sylvia Anderson, lovely lady, she would dish out praise. The studio started being destroyed by what I would call rotten management. As it expanded and everybody took credit for ideas that they hadn't invented, at the end of the day, everybody would say, oh, that was my idea. Yes, they would say, but we're all a team together, aren't we? And that's when they decided the effects would be credited as Team 1 special effects, Team 2 special effects, and somebody, I think it was Harry Oakes, the lighting cameraman, said, well, where will you be, Derek Meddings? Oh, well, I'll be on screen as supervising in charge of all special effects. And that's nearly provoked a strike until the union was involved and everybody got the credit they were entitled to. One of the lads pointed out to me when I was nagging, why are you carrying on like this, Shaun? At the end of the series, they're going to kick us out. A certain sort of, oh, sod the place, I'll stay here until I get the sack crept in. And unfortunately, it was true, and we were kicked out. And Gerry didn't come over and say, oh, marvellous lads, thanks very much for everything you've done. Disappointing. And that, I think, was a great shame, because there was skill and inventiveness and artistic endeavour that was just thrown aside.